Welcome back, Outcasts. Welcome to another episode of Confessions of an Outcast, where we are continuing to read the book I wrote as I got out of the military, I guess 4 years ago now, almost 4 years ago, 3.5 years ago. And as you recall, I use quotes in the chapters, and this one is from Carl Jung. The world will ask you who you are, and if you don't know, the world will tell you. And that's so true. So chapter number 1, lie number 1, limited idea entertained. Number 1, a replaceable commodity. If you're not a brand, you're a commodity, by Robert Kiyosaki. And he's the author of Rich Dad, Poor Dad and the Rich Dad, Poor Dad Empire. A phenomenal series of books that he had written by his core professionals that I highly recommend you look into if you don't know about him or what he talks about. Highly critical of the education system, just like me. And he's got some pretty outlandish, outcastish views on things, but he's spot on too, right? He's spot on, speaking truth, and upsets the normies. Oh, he upsets the normies. All right, let's get into it. Let's begin with a story from my days as a lieutenant. Okay, non-Navy tops, that is an 03 pay grade captain in your world. It's a story I'm not fond of. We were leaving from our final port visit on the USS George H.W. Bush, CVN-77, nuclear-powered aircraft carrier, her maiden deployment, and a sailor ended up getting his forearm pinched between a forklift and the nose of a fighter jet. Yes, it was an incident if there ever was one. It was the first I have ever experienced, and the circumstances surrounding this injury were just awful. It made me sick to my stomach. I still remember how the CO glared at me in the casualty room a few minutes after it happened as he waited for additional updates to arrive while the investigation began. The sailor ended up being medevaced off the carrier and back to a foreign country's hospital. That was in Marseille, France, by the way, and accompanied by one of my senior petty officers from the same division. So I'll save the results of that story for another day, but the point is this. Both the injured sailor and the senior petty officer who escorted him from the ship in 2011 were replaceable in that environment. And I'm going to pause here and caveat. So the CO glaring at me thinking I was the safety officer that allowed this to happen, right, was completely wrong. I'd been relieved not 5 minutes before by a more senior officer, a lieutenant commander, who had just gotten back from an individual augmentee assignment supporting the Army. And he didn't have any training. I didn't have any safety training really either. It's all so-called common sense, all right? And we didn't have whistles issued to us in order to get the attention or to stop. We didn't have necessary equipment or training in order to effectively navigate that dangerous environment in the hangar bay of a carrier during aircraft movements and cargo handling events. Actually, it wasn't aircraft movement. It was a cargo handling event is what it was, and there were aircraft parked in the way that could have been moved out of the way that we found out afterwards. But anyways, it was a mess. The investigation wound up issuing that lieutenant commander officer a CHID, a write-up, for his failure to prevent an incident, and I don't believe he's selected for 05 because of that. So back to the book. Why were those two sailors replaceable in that environment? Because a division of 29 sailors remained with 100 others to pull from to shore up the missing labor, and because, as we will discuss in chapter 2, our time is of little concern in our active duty world. The mission takes precedence, supported by a halo of a higher calling. Sometime afterwards, I received my final promotion as a junior officer to lieutenant commander. Yes, I realize that in the Army, the USMC, and the U.S. Air Force, an 04 pay grade is the most junior senior officer rank. Put another way, a vacancy in the 04 pay grade came up, a replaceable commodity had previously held it, and I was the commodity that filled the void. So during the promotion ceremony, the heels to my white shoes fell apart. The material was defective and a recall on the shoes had previously been issued. I received a replacement pair, if you care to know. That must have been an omen to what lay ahead, and man, was it a rocky ride over the next few years. Yeah, it was. As I moved from the 03 to 04 pay grades, I lacked a sit-down understanding of exactly what wearing that '04 rank and getting that '04 pay meant, and what that gold oak leaf brought to the table. And orientation could have helped. Junior officers were not sure where the position I was in fit into the overall command structure, and because of that, were quick to bypass the lieutenant commanders and deal directly with the '05 pay grade executive officer that shouldn't have been allowed. Bottom line, it was a mess of an environment and I hated it. It was a very painful few years, I admit, but looking back, I understand now that part of what made that situation so painful was my fault. I was not in full health and I had yet to take steps to find out and understand what was wrong, let alone what to do about it. Additionally, I had no clarity about my purpose, not just with regards to that rank on my collar, but inside myself. I was a commodity and nothing more. During my early years as a lieutenant commander, a pseudo-mentor of mine, after promoting away from lieutenant, explained to me that lieutenant commander is the most useless rank in the Navy. Now, looking back, I tend to agree. So far as I can tell, this is not the case with majors in the other branches who mostly hold command positions at some point during their careers at that rank. But 2 years into that tour, I ended up deploying on an individual augmentee to the sandbox, supporting the U.S. Army. It was a blessing and a curse. Actually, it wasn't supporting the Army. I'd done that before my carrier tour. This was actually supporting the Navy as an IA, supporting U.S. 5th Fleet. My fourth child, only 2 months old at the time, was at home with my wife and his 3 siblings, ages 7, 6, and 2 then. It was 0 degrees at my departure point, and I arrived at the Arabian Gulf to a sweltering 100-degree wall of 99% humidity on Valentine's Day. Expecting to be home by mid-March, April at the latest, it was to be a short stint serving the higher calling while bridging a wide gap in the information systems over there. Programs were being put in place because of the Fat Leonard scandal in the Western Pacific from a few years prior. Active duty personnel were being called into gap civilian billets known as jobs in society. 2 months turned into 4 and then 6, and I returned home in August to get better acquainted with my 8-month-old son. Why does this matter, you ask? The government civilians whose billets we occupy make us replaceable commodities in the context of uniformed military service. I too was a replaceable commodity in that assignment, not just in the IA, but throughout my entire career, as are you. Early on, when the soles of my shoes fell apart during my promotion ceremony, a senior officer told the wardroom, that is the group of officers assigned to a command in the Navy, that the ashore positions for active duty exist to give us a break from the stressors of operational duty. Our assignment was to learn about staff support to the operational Navy and to backfill fleet operations in the case of an emergency or crisis. We were, like the soles on my shoes, in fact replaceable commodities, being trained for the possibility of having to replace other replaceable commodities. The lie. I tell these stories to reinforce the fact that yes, in the military, which exists to impose political will through the real threat of killing people and breaking things, we service members are in fact commodities with numbers assigned to us. In our training and in every assignment since, the military beats this fact into us, and our twisted culture perpetuates this mindset. The team focus and good for the group mentality to tasks and missions required in the military will get you run over in the society you defended in service to the nation. You are replaceable, and you know it. You must grow beyond this mentality, recover your individuality, and get your why back now. If you don't, this mentality will lead you into an ambush while still in service and project you straight out of uniform and off your intended path, right over the transition cliff, sooner than you realize, because the lie is that you're a replaceable commodity. The truth, you are not a replaceable commodity. Do not let the military's institutional perspective of you define you. In your life, far outside of the military bubble in which you were indoctrinated and institutionalized, you are not replaceable. For junior officers, I offer insight into the systems we are working in through multiple social media outlets, so if you're unsure of how the military medical or the evaluation systems function, drop in to get up to speed. Alternatively, figure it out as you go. The ambushes await. And I'm going to sidetrack on this real quick. So it's so important to understand how military medicine works so that you can document your elements now in your record, because that's the only thing the VA and the Navy is going to use to issue your disability rating whenever you leave the service. That's at 4 years in or 40 years in. And to try to go back and document your military medical elements that you experienced throughout your career at the end of it, well, that's just piss poor planning. Don't do that, okay? You got to know what to tell the doctor, how to make sure that it's in your record post follow-up, and how to force them to write that stuff down. And then every year get copies of your record, because the military will mysteriously lose your medical records throughout your career. Yeah, they will, because you're just a replaceable commodity. All right, so the ambushes await, right? I guarantee it, but you and you alone must believe it. It is past time to get beyond this misconception. Climb that hill and embrace your value, knowledge, skills, and abilities. Acknowledge yourself and position to offer your unique gifts to the world, both during uniform service and far, far beyond it. We desperately need them right now. As I entered my transition battle window during the summer and fall of 2020, I desperately sought all the knowledge and information available in this process. I stumbled across the U.S. Army's retirement planning guide in 2020 titled, quote, "Retired Soldier for Life," close quote. And I thought to myself, really? No kidding, veterans are having such a challenging time beyond wearing the rank when the transition process labels Army service members as, quote, "soldiers for life," close quote. Those service members are carrying that mentality into the vicious and dog-eat-dog capitalistic economy of our democratic republic, where it does not belong. You're not soldiering for life, fighter pilots for life, sailors for life, or Marines for life. No, okay, once a Marine, always a Marine. Since every Marine. But I digress. Shouldn't it be once a Marine, always a rifleman, since every Marine is a sharpshooter? Yes, I acknowledge there is a tremendous amount of emotion tied up in this topic. Many, dare I say most, will likely be leery of releasing their grip on the blood, sweat, and tears spent earning their, quote, "always a whatever" title. Perhaps incorporating the paradigm from your service and profession and your experiences from it into developing and maintaining an enduring brand to get your unique personalized message out to the world. Anyway, I'm not going to die on this hill, so let's press forward. The system will go on without us, and you know it. Carrying this fill-in-the-blank for life mindset into your biggest mission, your transition battle, and beyond that inevitable last day on active duty will set the military family on a course not to embrace freedom, but to push it away and keep liberty at bay. You will not find autonomy in that mindset. You will not get that liberty back. You will not be free. Do not give up your chance to achieve autonomy, those rights given up for yourself in exchange for years, even decades spent defending freedom for others. Your liberty depends upon not being a commodity, starting early during active duty, or now if you're already long in the tooth and heavy with rank. We will discuss in detail the importance of your why in a later chapter. For now, just know that you or your spouse, son, daughter, brother, mother, father are not a commodity and that you or they are not replaceable. We need you or them fully alive in service and far beyond it. Additionally, your name is your most important asset. It will live on after your time runs out. But while you're sucking wind and spouting hot air, your time is just as important and valuable of an asset. Treat it as a commodity, and you can, but doing so along with your name, you'll waste away the precious opportunity to maximize your use of both. Keeping the commodity mindset about ourselves as service members, not developing a brand and letting others view us through that lens today and into the future as a military veteran. Commodity mindset about ourselves as service members, not developing a brand and letting others view us through the lens today and in the future is a military veteran's tremendous disadvantage. And this quote ends the chapter. It comes from Jason B.A. Van Camp, author of Deliberate Discomfort and founder of Mission 60. If you start to question yourself, remember to doubt your doubts before you doubt your faith in yourself. And then George Gammon of the Rebel Capitalist community states, "We've got to know what we don't know. One of the biggest mistakes people make is they try to take incredibly complex topics and attempt to make a bumper sticker decision from wild oversimplifications due to, or actually what's probably worse, based on a misunderstanding or complete lack of understanding. Being skeptical and trying to poke holes in our own theories and about what we think we know is the most powerful mindset and perspective we can have." All right, to close out chapter 1 with Jason B.A. Van Camp's quote, who is author of Deliberate Discomfort and founder of Mission 60. He said, quote, "If you start to question yourself, remember to doubt your doubts before you doubt your faith in yourself." And then from George Gammon, who is the founder and leader of the Rebel Capitalist community, he says, quote, "We've got to know what we don't know. One of the biggest mistakes people make is they try to take incredibly complex topics and attempt to make a bumper sticker decision from wild oversimplifications due to, or actually what's probably worse, based on a misunderstanding or complete lack of understanding. Being skeptical and trying to poke holes in our own theories and about what we think we know is the most powerful mindset and perspective we can have." So that's chapter 1. Only about 15 minutes, but that's how I opened up the book. And everything I wrote in there is still applicable today. Every single bit of it. Yeah. So hope you guys enjoyed it. That's it for this week's editions of Confessions of an Outcast. Reading the book Avoiding Each and Every Military Veteran's Disadvantage, How to Overcome the Lies of Military Family Beliefs to Get Our Freedom Back, by Commander J.H. Smith. All right. Well, if you wouldn't mind, I'd appreciate it if you would like and share the video. Send this to a active duty or reserve friend, family member, acquaintance that you know, because they need this book a year ago, 10 years ago, 2 decades ago, if they're already in the senior officer ranks and pressing toward a retirement, because they are behind the 8 ball. They don't have it figured out. And then, yeah, I've got a lot going on the homestead. So you can go check out the other playlists to see what's going on here around the place. You can see changes being made. We got the new fire pit area more well established. You can take a look at. Found me a fire pit the other day, and I got brick put up around this. And found me a little. You see a little fire wood holder back there. So yeah, it's coming along. But we talk about that on other places on the channel. But I'm glad you joined us. It's great being an outcast. So let's stay weird together. To your liberty. The Outcast Commander is